what former OU player would you add to the 2023 team that would make the biggest difference for this year? And so what we're going to do here is go a little bit of back and forth the draft. We'll each pick one for offense, one for defense. And Tyler, I'll give you the first pick here. You can go either side of the ball.
Yeah, I'll start with offense on this one. And again, there's so many different directions that you could take. So many good players that have, graced us with their play on Owen Field over the last 22 years. Obviously, a lot of people might want to say, just do the simple route, take an Adrian Peterson, take a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback over the last 5 to 6 years. But I think when you look at the current makeup of this offense going into the upcoming season, I think that the quarterback position is one where Dillon Gabriel, when he's playing his best game, when his A+ brand of football is clicking, I think that this team is good enough to win 10+ games and compete for a conference championship. So I'm going to stay away from the quarterback position, and I'm actually going to go out to wide receiver. That's a position group where there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unproven guys in that room. Our most experienced guys are Jalil Farouk and Drake Stoops, who have made their fair share of plays over the last couple of seasons, but it kind of feels like this wide receiver room truly lacks that dynamic elite playmaker. So it's kind of cliche, but I'm going to go back to my Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb as being the guy that I would add to this offense for the 2023 season. I think the offensive line is going to be very formidable, especially once you get Walter Rouse back. He can kind of lock up that left tackle position to go along with the other 4 starters. Bill Beanbow's got some great options to choose from, so we'll see what that offensive line looks like once conference play rolls around. But yeah, I think CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion, I know that we've seen some good ones over the last 20 years. Mark Clayton, Ryan Broyles, Shep, Dede, Hollywood, the list goes on and on. But in terms of, the complete package of a wide receiver, you got to start with CeeDee Lamb when talking about, the all-time greats in an OU uniform. So give me 2. Give me CeeDee Lamb added to the 2023 team.
I kind of had a feeling that you would go to wide receiver, and I thought that's great because I don't value that position nearly as highly as you do. I think it's kind of like running back, where I think you can throw out a lot of different guys. And OU's gotten some good freshman additions, some portal transfers that have come in. Andrew Anthony comes to mind. Brennan Thompson recently coming up from Texas. There's a lot of guys that I think could really blossom. Maybe they just need the opportunity. So I'm actually going to go to my very first overall pick. I'm glad you didn't take him. I'm going with 0 sacks allowed, Creed Humphrey, placing him back in the middle of that offensive line. He's an all-pro center. I think he could do a lot for this offensive line, whether that's, hey, Raym can move over to a guard position, or maybe he strengthens just whoever the guards are that are next to him. He can be that point of attack. He can, direct the offensive line. I think that would be such a significant boost to the overall offense, across the board. I did consider quarterback as well, but for the same reasons you mentioned, I think Dillon Gabriel has enough. I feel like I'm almost discounting a Kyler Murray, for example, if I say that there's not that big of a gap, because there is a big gap. But I think Creed Humphrey is very effective as a role that this team could really need, and the point of attack there right in the middle of the line. Let me ask you this. Would I have been crazy if I had said a Jermaine Gresham or a Mark Andrews?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, here's my thought light on that.
Give me some more info on that.
I think I would have gone Jermaine Gresham there. I think he's a better blocker than Mark Andrews was as a college player. And I think that he would have been a very effective middle of the field receiver for Dillon Gabriel. That's something that fans want a lot to see a lot more of, this middle of the field passing. I think he could have been an effective big body target. Maybe we'll get that out of Stogner, but I think Gresham is the superior athlete, superior player. At least, I mean, that's a fairly obvious statement, but that's just kind of what I was thinking there.
I mean, it definitely wouldn't hurt having Mark Andrews or Jermaine Gresham added to the roster for this upcoming season. But I think that Stogner, if we can get Jace Llewell and Caden Helms healthy, get them acclimated. Obviously, they're now they've got multiple years of experience inside the program. But I really do like the Creed Humphrey pick. Obviously, the center position, that's the anchor, that's kind of the glue that ties all 11 guys together, because it doesn't matter how elite you are out on the perimeter, how good of a quarterback you have. Yes, when you've got a guy like Kyler Murray, he can hide some deficiencies on your offense. But if you've got a guy in an all-pro center in Creed Humphrey, who, I mean, let's face it, probably, if not the top center, he's at least top 3 in the NFL right now. If you were able to have him come back, under Bill Bedenbaugh, to kind of stabilize and help that offensive line position group, spring forward a little bit. Yeah, I think Creed Humphrey, by far and away, is the best offensive lineman choice that you can make, maybe outside of or Orlando Brown. But I think that the two tackles that Oklahoma's going to have starting game one this year with Rouse and Guyton, center position on the interior is really kind of, if there is a question mark on this offensive line, it starts on the interior for me. So Creed Humphrey would be a good one as well. Adam, since I took the first pick, I'm going to flip it back over to you. We're going to go defense. If you could add one former defensive guy, who would you bring back to the 2023 team over the last 20 years? Kind of feel like we're going to be in the same line of thinking on this one.
Yeah. I tried so hard to rack my brain around, like, is there something, a different angle, a way to answer this question that's not super obvious, that everyone's kind of saying, yeah, the defensive tackle position. And we did get quite a few responses on Twitter that did say, hey, Leroy Selman. I know Danny Bayal said that on there. Scott Dawson said that on Twitter as well. That's before my time. So, and before kind of where we're looking at this, we're looking at just since 2000. So I really couldn't think of that. I was like, man, Danny Stutzman's great. Is there maybe a marginal upgrade, or maybe is there like a sidekick linebacker I could add to that? And I was like, yes, I could, but I don't think it raises the ceiling nearly as much as that defensive tackle position. So for that reason, I got to go with Tommy Harris. It's a little bit boring, but like it would be super effective to have someone like him on this defense, and really, I think, change the overall outlook from, yes, they can improve a lot, to, okay, they can be probably elite in one of the top 20 defenses in the country.
Yeah, I had two defensive tackles as my first two options here on the board, in Tommy Harris and Gerald McCoy. So you taking Tommy, I'm obviously going to switch position groups a little bit. I like where this defense, and again, it's hard to say that you like where this defense sits right now, coming off of a 6-7 season, disappointing effort, from this group from a year ago. I think that there's a lot of promising talent. There's a lot of potential, especially with what Oklahoma has returning to go along with what Oklahoma brought in the transfer portal, in particularly Rondell Bothroyd. So I'm going to stay away from the defensive line. Secondary, I feel probably this is the best that I've felt about the Oklahoma secondary in quite some time, maybe since the Aaron Colvin, Tony Jefferson, Zach Sanchez days. So I feel good about the guys that we've got in the back end of that defense. So I'm going to go linebacker position here. Yes, I like Danny Stutzman. That's the alpha on that defense for this upcoming season. But who are you going to have playing next to him? Obviously, it's a battle right now with what we're hearing. Kobe McKenzie, Jaron Canick, those two guys are going to be fighting for, linebacker one, obviously, when the season kicks off. But I think that a good guy that you could plug into this situation that would ultimately, take this defense to the next level at the linebacker position, I'm going to kind of go off the radar here. I'm going to go Rufus Alexander, a guy that when he was, during his time at Oklahoma, you go back and you watch the tape, you watch this guy on defense. Just dominant is the word that comes to mind. Playing coverage, playing the running game. Rufus would be a tremendous addition. So I'm gonna go with Rufus here. I want to go with Roy Williams, but you know what? I like what I've got in the safety position right now. I feel comfortable with what Brandon Hall is coaching up in that room. So give me Rufus Alexander to plug in there right now.
And you're looking at him as a sidekick to Danny Stutzman, so replacing a Canick. Is that what I'm hearing?
Replacing a Canick, but I think in that situation, you throw Rufus Alexander out there, Danny Stutzman becomes the Robin to Rufus's Batman.
Yeah, so, that makes sense.
I hate to do it, love you 28, but that's kind of where we're at right now. If you had a two-headed monster at linebacker of Rufus Alexander, Danny Stutzman for this upcoming season, with Brent Venables coaching those guys up, man, the things you could do. So
we tweeted about it maybe it was like a week and a half ago, about how Danny Stutzman last year, and I know it's a little bit of cherry picking. It's kind of like in the NBA when you go, this guy is one of 3 players ever to have 7 rebounds, 10 points, and 18 blocks, or something crazy. Yeah. And it's always like, oh, it's LeBron, Oscar Robertson, and like Russell Westbrook or something. Yeah. So it's a little bit what we did there, but we basically said, hey, Danny was like one of, I think it was 4 or 5 OU players since 2000 that had 2 interceptions and over 100 tackles in a season. And pretty much all of them happened under Brent Venables, except for one, which was Tony Jefferson. And it was the year right after Brent left. So he'd been clearly coached up in that scheme and everything.
Brent's guy.
But the point is that Danny Stutzman got there last year and wasn't at his max level. So
Mhm.
what more can Brent get out of him? Not just from what Danny can do personally, but getting the scheme and everything around him to work properly too. Um, Definitely
Well, I
high
think
hopes for
that's
him.
what's got, not just coaches and his teammates, but that's what's got so many fans excited about as well. It almost kind of feels like you go back and you look at some of the premier linebackers that Brent Venables has coached over the last 20 years, the jump that they make from year 1 to 2 in his defensive scheme. I kind of feel like we're just scratching the surface on what Danny's going to be able to do and how he's going to be able to perform, now that he's a little bit more comfortable. He's in another year with Schmitty, so I'm expecting big things out of 28 for this upcoming season. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.